I'm Philip Hewat-Jaboor, and I have the great pleasure to be chairman of the Masterpiece Fair. It's a delight for me today to introduce 5 pieces which for me are highlights of the fair. I've chosen these pieces particularly because they're references either to classical antiquity or to early civilizations. The first piece I've chosen is an absolutely sensational work in steel by the Mongolian artist Zheng Lu, who worked in Beijing. Entitled Jin Bo and made in 2019, this wonderful sculpture stands over 2 meters high. What I really love about this is its extraordinary wave form. I mean, you feel the steel as if it's cascading, and it is truly calligraphy taken into sculpture. It's full of energy, and what is particularly extraordinary, when you examine this close up, the entire surface is covered with hieroglyphic inscriptions taken from classical Chinese texts. The next piece I've chosen is an English late 18th century commode known as the Townley commode. For me, this synthesizes all there is to do with neoclassicism and the Grand Tour. This commode has a really interesting story in that Charles Townley, who was one of the greatest collections of antiquities, made 2 grand tours to Italy. The first to Naples in 1768, where it appears that he bought this extraordinary marble top, although marble is a misnomer because it is made from Vesuvian lava samples arranged in a complex pattern. He would have bought this in Naples. He took it back to England, and when in England he commissioned a cabinet maker, possibly Mayhew and Ince, to construct the base, the commode itself, to take this really important and valuable slab of stone. The marquetry inlay was taken after Sir William Hamilton's engravings from the Antiques of Herculaneum, which had been published in 1760. So this work is a tremendous contemporary object, and it's unusual for a collector to be actually involved in the commissioning of works of art, which makes this piece particularly extraordinary. I would like to go a little further back in time to the Italian Renaissance. This extraordinary white marble bust of Cleopatra, probably carved in about 1550 in Venice, is typical of the then current style of looking back to the antique. This is very much modelled on a classical Roman marble bust. What I absolutely love about this is the turn of the head and the extraordinary drapery. Drapery, one would imagine, is normally meant to conceal. The drapery on this particular work does the reverse and reveals rather more than you would expect. Her hair is dressed in the latest hairstyle of the mid-16th century, and she has this most remarkable polished surface, and for me this is just a truly beautiful object. I'm particularly drawn to this Venetian painting by Joe Tilson. He was passionate about classical history and antiquity, and was particularly intrigued by Venetian art and culture, and a city in which he has spent most of the last 20 years. So much, I think, in Venice is overlooked, and this particular piece is taken from a small sculpture showing St. Christopher carrying Christ across the river just outside the Accademia. What to me is particularly appealing is the extraordinary background, which echoes the great cosmate and coloured marble floors that you might have seen in many Byzantine churches, and St. Mark's in particular. But the light is quite extraordinary. These rich, dense colours are suffused with light, and the more you look, the more that sort of changes, and you get this great pattern background which actually shifts, and it's completely evocative of that wonderful misty Venetian light. My last choice looks further back into antiquity. It's a rather wonderful painting by John Craxton, who spent most of the latter part of his life living in Crete. He was very much enamoured with the very rural life. The goat herds and shepherds were very much part of that life. And this extraordinary picture of a young goat herd shepherding his goat in this incredible rocky mountainous background is really inspired by a gold beaker from Sparta, which shows bulls, the Minotaur, being captured. And this is really very much the model for this picture. What I love about it is not only that particular relationship, but the extraordinary bold outlines of the picture. I mean, it's very much a cubist work, although it was not painted until 1970. I think it's hugely evocative. I like the flat planes, the really rich but sombre colouring. Exerts a really powerful force. It's quite a small canvas. And I think Craxton is a very much underrated artist, and I'm absolutely delighted that he's now surfacing into the wider world, because I think his work deserves a tremendous amount more attention than it has previously had.